Hey, I'm Paris with Paris My Reads, and welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel where I read and review books from a biblical worldview. I will be taking you through every single book that I read the past month. I read 10 books in lots of different genres, and if you haven't seen previous videos, you know that the background behind me looks a little different. We are actually in the middle of moving, so all of my books are packed up. My bookcases have been moved down to the garage. We are gearing up to get like the big moving truck in a couple days and start loading that up in the next week. So yeah, by the time this posts, we should be in our new house, God willing. And it's been very stressful, and I did not think I was gonna read so many books this month, but I think the stress of moving and wanting to escape that really aided in how many books I read. I also listened to a lot of audio while I have been packing, so that helps a lot too. But I don't have any physical books to hold or show you because they are all in boxes down in the garage. So without further ado, let's get into the books. And we're gonna start lowest to highest. So we're gonna start with my 3-star reads and work up to my 5-star reads. My only 3-star read from this past month is The Last Word by Taylor Adams, and I have only read, besides this book now, his debut novel, which is one of my top favorite thrillers. It is called No Exit, and it is fast-paced, so many twisty turnies that you don't see coming. I really have been trying to find another fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping thriller book and I am like coming up empty-handed. So this was one of my attempts to get that type of reading experience this month. I was intrigued by the premise of this book. It is a girl who reads a book and gives it a 1-star review, and then she starts getting stalked by the author. And there has been some drama that I've seen on Bookstagram before where authors have like commented back to reviews, and there's just like this whole like etiquette surrounding like how authors like should or shouldn't react with review posts. So I thought that would be such a fun thriller storyline, but then I was like semi-terrified to rate it low, but it was a mid 3 stars. The only thing I didn't see coming was a detail from the main female character's past. This book actually had a dual narration, so you get the point of view from the girl who left the 1-star review, and then you get the point of view from the killer, and it's like the killer is writing his next book. I also didn't really love the gruesome aspect to the killer, just like the personal details and stuff, which I mean, I guess it was so believable and gross that, I mean, that's real life killers are going to be that way. It just was like almost too much for what I personally like reading in a book. But in a way, it was very successful character development. There was, however, a running theme surrounding God throughout the narrative, and it did not need to be part of the narrative. So that also was just like, this didn't need to be in there. I'm like questioning, well, there's not a God, but if there's not a God, then I'm the God because I'm the author and I'm writing this narrative type thing. So I didn't really enjoy that aspect of it either. All in all, this was a just like mid thriller. I read a lot of mid thrillers. I read it pretty quickly on my Kindle. I think I got it off of Libby. Yeah, not much else to say about it. My quick takes on The Last Word by Taylor Adams are 3 out of 5 stars. Language is strong. Spice is none. Content is on-page descriptive murder, grotesque themes, grief, themes of infertility, child loss, and suicide. Okay, I lied. I do have another 3-star book from this month. And this is Never Flinch by Stephen King. This is his most recent release. And I didn't realize this when I put it on hold. It didn't say anywhere on Libby, which is so frustrating because usually it tells you on Libby if it's part of a series and like what book it is. It didn't have that anywhere. So this is actually book 4 in a series that's named after the main character in the book. And side note, I didn't even know that she was the main character until like 20% or so in. Once I realized she was the main character and that this was a series, I was like, okay, this is an odd way to intro the character. Like I didn't even realize she was the main character. She was not giving main character energy in this book. There is dual narrative. There's like two separate killer narratives going on. which I loved. That totally got me sucked in and kept me hooked the whole time. I did really like the main character though. Her name's Holly Gibney, and she's a private investigator. That's what they're called. So she's a PI. Also, the two killers, you know they're gonna somehow meet up toward the end of the book, and it just kind of fell flat for me, like how that happened. It was very anticlimactic. So I was hoping for more from when they finally, like, the plot lines merged, and it just didn't happen. I listened to the audiobook of this, and I actually, like, the narrator was fine. She wasn't terrible, wasn't the best. It was just like, felt like someone was reading me the book. And in a world of overproduced audiobooks, I'm not mad at someone reading me a book. My quick takes on Never Flinch are 3 out of 5 stars. Genre is true crime horror. I don't know if that's a genre, but that's what I'm giving this one because it felt true crime with like a horror side too. Language is strong. Spice is none. And content is on-page murder, topics of abortion, mental health rep, past domestic abuse, and religious extremism. Oh yeah, I didn't touch on this. So the abortion side, like political side of it, the stalker is like a stalker/killer person, is a religious extremist. Like he's part of kind of like a extreme religious cult or whatever. Usually that doesn't bother me, but I think it coupled with the abortion narrative too, it just didn't work for me. Too much of different things. I could handle one or the other, but like both in the same book was too much. Okay, 3.5 stars. And this book, I am so disappointed in this book. I had high hopes for this book and I've been looking forward to it for a few months. The epic fantasy virtual book club that I'm a part of is reading, they just started a new series, and that is the Echo Saga by Philip Quaintrell. And the first book is called Rise of the Ranger, and I had such high hopes. I mean, this is a 9-book epic fantasy series, and I feel like I've hit my stride in epic fantasy. This book fell really flat for me in a lot of areas. I just wasn't interested in the plot until like 70%. And there is like, you would think there's multiple points of view. There's like all kinds of things happening. There's elves, there's dragons, there's time travel, there's lore, there's magicians, magic. I mean, like in different people groups and continents. And you would think that I would have been more like just submerged into this. Now, this was his debut book. The last 20% was actually really good. So I do want to try to read the second book. The entire 9-book series is on Kindle Unlimited, and I'll put my free trial of Kindle Unlimited below. If you're not on Kindle Unlimited, highly recommend. And the first book is actually on Kindle Unlimited and Audible. Like if you add it to your Kindle Unlimited library, you can listen to it on Audible for free. So that's what I did. I tried to listen to it and I just couldn't even follow the storyline, except for like one group of characters, and everything else I was so lost. And so then I switched to my Kindle and read on my Kindle for a while until I found my bearings, and I was like, okay, the chapters, and I'm a quick reader, the chapters on my Kindle were like 20 to 25 minutes long. And that, coming from John Gwynne, where it's like super short chapters, and then going to a 20 to 25 minute chapter read is like, it felt rough. And that's just my personal preference. That has nothing to do with author writing or anything. That's just, I personally like short chapters. Then after I got my footing in the physical and on my Kindle, I switched back to the audio to finish it out because I was like, I've been packing and I'm exhausted at the end of the day, and I cannot stay up and physically read a 25-minute chapter. Like I have to put the audio in, get some stuff done, and just listen and power through these parts that I don't care about. And then once I got to the 70 to 80% mark, finally points of views were merging and like things were happening, the pace picked up. I am planning to continue book 2 and see if it gets better and like these things work themselves out. To be determined, maybe next month. I will have an update for book 2 for you. My quick takes on this are 3.5 out of 5 stars. Genre is epic fantasy. Language is infrequent, moderate with an asterisk. So I heard that the author went back and rewrote his first 3 books in this series, like after he had already written a ton of other books. So I think he took out a lot of the language when he rewrote. The audiobook actually has strong language. If you do the audio, it had some F-bombs in it, infrequent, but they were there. And then the Kindle, all of those, like no F-bombs. I actually did a word search on my Kindle and there were not any. So he took all those out. There is still moderate on the Kindle version of the book. Spices fade to black, and content is themes of war, violence, on-page death and killing, and innuendo. first book of my 4-star category is Dune by Frank Herbert. Is that who wrote it? Yeah, Frank Herbert. Have I mentioned I've been packing and like my life is chaos right now? Dune, wow, what a book. I have lots of thoughts about Dune. So we're gonna try and keep this succinct. This one, it was, 4 stars, so it was good. It held my attention. I wouldn't say it was like life-altering. I really love that I know the quote now, fear is the mind killer, that I see all over the place for like sci-fi and fantasy books. I really love when I read a book and I'm like, I know what that is now. So I have cultured myself a bit more in the sci-fi genre, which I've been trying to do, get into some more sci-fi books. And Dune, though, half the time I had no clue what was happening. And then once I finally figured out what was happening, I was like, oh yeah, I'm getting it. And then all of a sudden there'd be this huge like philosophical, introspective type narrative. And then I was lost again. And then all of a sudden I would figure out what was happening again. And it would be more like tangible plot happening. And then we'd get taken back out. It was an ebb and flow type plot. So the pacing felt a little off. As I was reading this, my brother, who is obsessed with the Dune movies, he is Gen Z, him and I are 10 years apart, and he was in town. So we ended up watching the first Dune movie and the new one. And he's obsessed with them. He has not read the book. So it was really fun to watch the movie. I was able to explain some things because in the book, obviously you're going to get more inner thoughts and details, lots of inner thoughts. However, now that I've read the book, like the last 20% of Dune, I did not care about at all. Like I was like, I'm checked out. Like, do not care how this ends. And it ends on a cliffhanger. I don't think I'm going to read the next one. Like, I'm just going to be done. Dune was a trip. It also has a lot of like intermingling beliefs of different religious sects. And a lot of it, like, he uses language like the Hajj and jihad to explain things. Not even really explain things though. It's just talking about like this uprising that's going to happen with the desert people that live on this planet. But he's using language like Hajj and jihad, which are Muslim terms. But then there's also like the main character is like the Christ figure type, like Messiah savior coming to lead these people into jihad. But then there's also like, I don't want to say New Age, almost like maybe Buddhism. I don't know. There was just like, it's like he took like little bits and pieces of different religious beliefs and put them all into a pot and like mixed them together. And it was just a lot of like jumbly gloop. That's when I got lost on a lot of things because I'm like, I'm picking up on words and ideas that I know about and like different religious beliefs, but they're not really connecting. I don't know anything about Frank Herbert or his like background or his personal beliefs or anything like that. So what if he has a biography? That would be really interesting to read. Dude probably has a really interesting life. Maybe like skip the book if you haven't read it. Just watch the movies. That would be my my advice. I did listen to this on audio and it was a full cast audio and it was almost overproduced. And the full cast was weird. So there was a main narrator and at the beginning of the book, it's the full cast. So you have the narrator voice and then anytime anyone speaks, I think because there was more actual like narrative of people talking to each other at that point, all the full cast was speaking. But then there would be like big chunks of the audio where the narrator the main narrator of the audiobook would be talking, like narrating the book. And then the main character speaks or the mom speaks or whoever speaks and it's still him. Like they didn't put the other voice actors back in to do that dialogue. And so I found myself liking the main narrator more than like the whole full cast audio. So that was a really weird thing too, because sometimes when there was a lot of dialogue, they brought the full cast back in and all of a sudden everyone had different voices again. It just was like, all of it felt so mismatched to me, like everything. The plot, the pacing, the audiobook narration, the religious beliefs, like all just, it was kind of clunky. If you've been interested in this book, I like go for it. that's what I did. And I am glad that I've read it now. And like I said, it is a notch on my sci-fi belt. So I am trying to add more popular sci-fi into my reading repertoire. And so if you have been interested in Dune, definitely give it a try. And I had a ton of people message me when I shared I was finally reading Dune on Instagram, and a ton of people loved it, gave it 5 stars. So you could love it too. If you have not really been interested in Dune, but have seen the movies around, maybe just watch the movies. Don't read the book. My quick takes on Dune are 4 out of 5 stars. Language is none. I don't remember hearing any language. If there was any, it would have been mild. Spice is none with an asterisk. I see people on Instagram all the time say that Dune has a ton of spice. I'm going to tell you the secret so people can't get you with their Dune jokes. Spice is what the drug that they're harvesting on the desert planet is called. It's called spice. So there is technically a lot of spice, and the whole plot revolves around that. But in the book world, where we're talking about spice being explicit sexual content in the book, there is none in Dune. So there you go. And content is death and killing. So really, honestly, the themes throughout Dune are pretty mild compared to a lot of fantasy and sci-fi I've read, but everything else was a bit erratic. The next 4-star book is an Emily Wilde book. I'm gonna have to look down at my notes because I honestly don't even know the full name of this. Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies. And this is book 1 in her series. I think it's a trilogy. I don't know if there's more coming, but there are 3 books out now. This is by Heather Fawcett. And again, going into a book with the wrong expectations, this book is not at all what I thought it was gonna be. So I thought it was gonna be way more slow-paced, just cozy fairies in a field. We're frolicking, we're picking flowers, that type of vibe. It was still definitely cozy, but we're talking some dark academia. We're talking going into other, the fae. I mean, there is more, I would say, fae in this book. There are more smaller fairy type species, but there is also human-sized fae is how they talk about it. And going into their realm. So there is some realm stuff happening and magic. Yeah, I just was not expecting that at all. I mean, I remember at one point in the book, I was like, what is happening? I did not think that this type of action would be in this book. So it took me by surprise in a good way. I did really enjoy this book. And I plan to read the rest of the series. I did the audiobook, and I have the rest on hold already on Libby. So like I said, it is cozy. So the beginning starts a little bit slow in terms of pacing, but then toward the halfway point end, you get a lot of action, adventure, and lore. So I really enjoyed that. This book reminded me of a lot of different books and different aspects within them. So the fairy lore really reminded me of The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. And then it also reminded me of Blood Over Bright Haven. So the female main character in this book in Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairies reminded me of the main character in Blood Over Bright Haven, in the sense that she is a female academic in a all-male academia world. So she's the only female trying to pursue academic studies in this time period, and it gives, again, the Victorian futurism type setting that Blood Over Bright Haven has as well. Also, this entire book is written in journal entries, and so that really reminded me of Emma M. Lyon, which I've been reading through, the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower. And I used to think that I didn't really love reading books that were written like that, journal entries, but I'm finding that I've really been enjoying them lately. It adds a sense to the cozy atmosphere. So this was a really enjoyable, cozy fantasy. It was easy to follow. The lore wasn't really intense. So this would be a great one to pick up if you're interested in a cozy fantasy, and it's set in winter, so it would be the perfect read for the upcoming fall and winter season. My quick takes on this book are 4 out of 5 stars. Language is mild, In God's Name in Vain. Spice is none. Content is death, violence, and same-sex attraction of side characters. We are getting nuanced. I'm getting nuanced with my book review stars. Sometimes it's just straight up. I think last month I had just straight up 3, 4, 5 stars. And this is 4.25 stars. And this is book 2 of the Invisible College series called The Violence of Sound by Jeff Wheeler. This again is a Victorian futurism, Regency romance type fantasy book. And I loved the first book, Invisible College. These are all on Kindle Unlimited as well. These also are on, like both books so far are on the Kindle Unlimited, and you add it to your library and you get the audio on Audible for free. So that's how I listened to this. Also got it as an art copy, but I really enjoy the audio. So I've been waiting until it is released to actually listen to the audio of the book. And this is not at all where I thought that he was going to go with the plot of this book. I thought we were going to get more like lore and background into the enemy and more like magic system, dark academia, and I could not have been more wrong. So this one felt a little bit more slower paced. The two main characters are kind of like manhunted through the plot by one of the enemies. Just not where I thought the plot was going to go. So he's releasing book 3 and 4 at the same time on the same day, September 16th or 18th. I can't remember, mid-September timeframe. I have book 3. It is in a box. If I hadn't have already packed it up, I probably would be jumping into it because the cliffhanger, this again fell in the same vein of like the last 30% of the book like picked up and the plot was thickening, and then you are left on like an insane cliffhanger. And so I am ready to dive into book 3. I don't know if I can wait for the audio on this. It depends on how quickly I get all my books unboxed when we move, if I can get it back in my hands and start reading it. But I'm really excited to binge 3 and 4. And then it will be a completed series. So very excited that he's releasing both books together. I think that is so fun. My quick takes on The Violence of Sound are 4.25 out of 5 stars. Genre is fantasy. Language is none. Spice is none or closed door. And content is themes of war, violence, and deaf representation. 4.5 stars. Okay, I feel like my reading this month, I had way more like 3 to 4 star books than I normally do. And like the 4.5 to 5 felt like I only had 1 5-star book this month, and it literally saved my reading, and I'm so excited to talk to you about it. But before we get to my 5-star, we're gonna get into my 4.5. So the first book in my 4.5 stars is Splendor of the Land by Connellan Cosette, and this is a biblical historical fiction. This is book 3 in her series, The King's Men, and this follows 4 different friends. So we're gonna have a 4th book, 4 different friends / cousins, and they, in their childhood, saw King Saul get anointed by Samuel and become king. And now they are old enough to be like serving in the army and having their own like romantic journeys. So these are biblical historical fiction, but they also have a subplot of romance throughout. And this has been the one that I've loved the most. Like I have been waiting for this character's story, and the redemption in this book is like so good. It was so good. So I'm really excited to see what she does with the 4th book, but let's focus on this one. The main character is Gavriel. I'm not gonna be able to pronounce that right, but he goes by Gavi, and he is like hardened warrior, and I really loved his storyline. The redemption arc is so good, and the romance, I'm not even going to tell you what the romance is because I was not expecting it. I don't know if I just didn't read her blurb. Like I follow the author on Instagram and I see all her posts, and I have done her ARC team before, and I actually got this one early from the publisher, and I just don't think I read the blurb because I knew like, oh, it's Gabby's book and I already know the other 2 books, so like I'll just read it. And one of the plot points was a surprise for me, and it was like the best when it happened. I was like, yes. So one of my favorite romance tropes is in this book. This one is by far my favorite. You can read them as standalone, but they definitely build on each other. They build on each other in the sense that the 4th book is going to be a thread that's run throughout all 3 books so far. And then also the cousins and friends like show up again. And so it does help like if you have some background, but you don't have to. And there's enough background given in this 3rd book with the strand that's woven through that you would be able to like read the fourth book if you wanted to without reading the other two. Would highly recommend if you're looking for a biblical historical fiction. This is so niche. It's set in Old Testament time during King Saul's reign, which I also love because so far David has not been mentioned at all. We have Jonathan, but no David. I don't know if she's going to mention David at all, but I feel like people skip over Saul and just jump to David. I mean, like, obviously David is a much larger character in the grand scheme of the Bible. And I've been reading through, shameless plug, I've been working through a Bible study from the Daily Grace Code, and I'll link it below, and it's called Peaks and Valleys, and it is technically a study on the life of David, and there's a weekly psalm that you read as well, but it's in 1st and 2nd Samuel. So I've been in 1st Samuel reading through these accounts of Saul that I now have like read these historical fiction books, and this has happened with every single book. Somehow every single book that she's released, I have been in the scriptures at the same time as I've been reading the books. That's been a really cool like little God wink, and I've just really enjoyed this series. My quick takes are 4.5 out of 5 stars. Language is none. Spice is none or closed door. Content is death, killing, war. Off page, pagan worship and torture and alcoholism or drunkenness. Would highly recommend this series by Connell Cosette. She has a lot of different series, and so far this is the first of hers that I've read, but I definitely want to continue reading her books. Next in my 4.5 star category is The English Masterpiece by Catherine Ray. I've only read one other book by this author, The London House, and these are historical fiction novels. It's set in London during the 1970s, specifically in the art scene. So I have said multiple times in my videos that I have an art degree. So I actually got my master's degree in London. I moved to London to get my master's degree and study art over there. And this book felt like it was specifically tailored to me. It was so fun to be back in the art scene and think about all these artists that I have studied before and like seen in person. And it takes place in the Tate Modern, and we went to the Tate Modern all the time for class. It was just like everything about this was so fun. This is super niche though, and I did look through some of the like mid star ratings and reviews on Goodreads, and a lot of them were like it was slow or like uninteresting. And if you don't know a lot about art, I can see how that is the case, and it would feel that way because she does get into a lot of the artists, and there's also a little bit of narrative surrounding the World War II Nazi art looting, which I am a big fan of that topic as well. So this book just had like everything for me, and I loved it. It just was right up my alley, and I love reading and finding books that are specific to my personal interests, and I'm sure you feel the same way if you have ever read a book that has felt that way to you. Like, it's one of the best things you can find, I think. This also had some redemption in the narrative. The female main character has some like self-acceptance that she walks through, as well as forgiveness and strengthening the bonds between her and her family. Any book that has some level of like redemption narrative, I am a big fan of. Obviously, that ultimately points us to the biggest redemption narrative in our lives, and that is that Christ died for us on the cross to get us out of death and into eternal life with him. So I love redemption in books. I listened to this on audio. It is dual narrated, but it's not like guy-girl dual narrated. There are actually two, I said female main character earlier. There's actually 2 female main characters, which I'm just not remembering thanks to my review notes. Narration was really great. One of my favorites was one of the narrators, Saskia Marleveld. I love any book that she narrates. She has such a great narrator's voice. If you can find a book with her narration, highly recommend. This one has that. Again, I listened to this on Libby, so it was on hold for a while. This is Catherine Ray's newest release, so she just came out with this, I think, a month or 2 ago, and big fan. I absolutely want to own a hard copy of this for my shelves. My final book in the 4.5 star category is a memoir. It has been a minute since I've read a memoir. Usually memoirs are 5 stars for me just because I think people's lives are so interesting and like how vulnerable they get in their books. I'll talk about why a little bit of this one was a 4.5 star once I get into the review. This book is The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie. One of the biggest questions I got when I was reading this book is if I had seen the like documentary or show about all of this, and I have not, and I do not plan to, because there are children involved, and anything when there's children involved, like I just can't. And Sherry did a really great job of protecting the younger children and the family's privacy. She never mentions them by name in the book, and she never goes into detail about what happened to them at the end, which I really respect. I think as a consumer of the internet and social media in the day and age in which we live, it is so easy to feel like we are entitled to knowing certain details of people's lives. And at the end of the day, we aren't. So I really appreciate that she took the strides in her book where she could control what information she gave out and protected her siblings in the best way that she knew how. This book was heartbreaking. I mean, her story just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And she, as the oldest, I feel like probably had the best experience out of all of the siblings, which is just heartbreaking. And it made me want to squeeze my girls really tight and just give extra snuggles and hugs and kisses all around. I also have, since having a platform on Instagram, we have stopped showing our children online, and we have asked grandparents to do this and friends. I just want to protect them and their online footprint. And the best way I know how to do that is just to not show them online. Being a content creator and reading this book and just thinking through, like, if my children were in my content, would that slope get slippery? Would they take the weight of like the pressure that I feel and the responsibility that I feel for certain things on them because I want them to do something for me for content or, you know, whatever, once they get older? I just don't want any of that for them. Sherry really dives into her firsthand accounts of how growing up in an influencer family affected her childhood. And it just really was the cherry on top for how I've been feeling about that anyway. So if you have ever wanted like a firsthand account of what it is like to grow up with your image and your life all over social media, like that's how she grew up. I mean, her mom was like mega YouTuber when YouTube started and vlogged and filmed everything. And what I've heard from people about like the documentary and show is that it does go into more detail. The book was more palatable in that sense. And I actually listened to the audio and Sherry narrates it. And I always think it is so powerful when the author of their book or memoir reads it, because it just adds a whole nother layer of like relatability and emotion to the narrative and the storyline. Now, my big hang up with giving this 4.5 out instead of 5 stars is that I know a lot of people don't rate memoirs as a rule because they don't want to rate somebody's life. And that's not what my half star is doing, because within every book, you still have like a narrative, a plot, pacing. There are still things that you should be doing when you write. It is specifically about some of the things she brought up. So like one of the biggest ones was she said that she realized one of the ways that she could take control of like having extra money for spending was creating her own YouTube account separate from her mom's. So she did that, but then her mom took control of the YouTube account. She was still a minor at that point. Sherry was a minor. But one of my big questions was like, did you ever see any of that money? Like, did your mom take all that? Like, that was a very interesting plot point for me, and it never got touched on again. And there were a few instances of that. Like, she brought up something that seemed like a critical thing in her life and then doesn't ever come back to the reader and say what actually happened with it. I just had some things like that I wish would have been resolved more in the narrative that weren't. Quick takes are 4.5 out of 5 stars. Language is mild, spice is none, and content is psychological and sexual abuse. Finally, 5-star. This book saved my reading this month. So throughout the year, there are books that get announced and you think, yes, this book's gonna be so good. Or like you get an arc from a publisher. When I say you, I mean me, because I don't know if you get arcs from publishers or really follow like what books are coming up or not. But if you do, you know what I'm talking about. And they fall flat or like they don't meet your expectations. This book met expectations. It exceeded expectations. I put this off for so long, this book, because I read my arcs. I try to read them before they get released. So usually I read them right leading up to their release date. I've had this arc for a few months because I'm on their publisher team, their publisher reviewer team. And the book I'm talking about is Wilde, Reverence by Rebecca Ross. And it's been a minute since I've been in a Rebecca Ross book, and this might be my favorite by her. I still have 3 books of hers I haven't read. This book is technically a new adult romantasy. It does unfortunately have a little bit, like a hair more, not descriptive, but like intense, not even intense. Like, I don't know how to, her writing is so lyrical and descriptive and beautiful and emotional. And so this book has more spice than her other books do, but I still wouldn't even say it's explicit. It's like it's an open door, but everything's vague. And there's one full scene and then like 2 really brief scenes. So technically 3 instances, but more like 1 and then 2 half is how I would like describe it. But again, not descriptive, but like, you know what's happening. It's more emotional and lyrically written. This book was so deeply entrenched in lore, and if you've read any books by her, they're usually set in the mortal realm, and then there is some element of like gods and goddesses and magic. This book is set in the realm of the gods. So this book is technically a prequel to her Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, which those two books I read at the beginning of, I believe, of 2024, and they opened the door to me for fantasy. So they already have a really like sweet spot in my heart. Wilde Reverence was just like, again, exceeded expectations. And I can't put into words like how the book is written or made me feel, because I'm not on the level of Rebecca Ross's writing ability. Like, I ain't even eating the crumbs, all right? It's set in the god realm of the Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows realm, like world, but it's in the past of that. So you're predating Divine Rivals by like a few hundred, if not thousands of years. We're talking about immortal gods. It follows one goddess specifically. Her name is Matilda, and it is a romantasy. So she does have a main love interest called Vincent. So Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows is set more closer to modern day type society. And so while Reverence takes place more in like medieval, like there's castles and knights, I have realized the more fantasy I read, like the medieval setting is like my bread and butter. I love it. So just really enjoyed everything about this. I have no notes. I'm really excited to have this physically in hand very soon, and would highly recommend this to anyone that's read Rebecca Ross or is just interested in a lyrically written but easily digestible high fantasy romantasy storyline. My quick takes on this are 5 out of 5 stars. Genre is new adult romantasy. Language is infrequent, mild. Spice is non-descriptive, open door. And then I did note the chapters. So chapters 67, 68, and 84 are where those take place. I don't have page numbers because again, I was on the ARC, on my Kindle, and like page numbers change. But I will be putting up a full review on my Instagram. And once I do that, I'll link it below. I will have page numbers once I have a physical copy in my hands. Content is on-page death, killing, themes of war, and same-sex relationship of side characters. Those are all 10 books that I read the past month. I am very excited to have my books back in my hands and get this move done with. I have maybe one other video that I've recorded already that I will post. So you might see another video with me like sitting in this house, but I feel like this is kind of like a goodbye to this space where I started my very humble YouTube origin story. Started in this little corner and my books are already gone, but with my books and my bookshelves, saying a little goodbye and wrapping it up here, and excited to find a new spot in our next home. But until then, until I get to show you the new space, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. You can click on my face. If you haven't watched this video right here, you can go do that. Check out my other videos that I have available. And until next time, I hope all of your reads are 5 stars.